Hi, Robin with Oxy-Dry, and today I'm going to just take a few minutes to tell the story of what has brought me to where I am at today with in carpet cleaning. So I'll tell you the story of how I began and the things that I've done over the years, because I actually I've been fortunate that over the years of doing this, which goes back to 1974 when I first began helping out my dad. I've had, I think I think it's been a good thing that I've actually used every method there is. So I've got a quite uh, a wide range experience in various carpet cleaning methods, all of them, I guess. So let's go back to 1974. I was 14 years old, about, and my dad started carpet cleaning back then, and he had actually sent away. There was an ad in the back of a magazine or something about this wonderful carpet cleaning method, and my dad was looking for a way to add to his income, and I guess he had an idea that he wanted to be a businessman and offer a service. And this was in Victoria, and so he sent away and he received and got a Von Schroeder dry foam extraction machine. And for those of you who never heard of these machines, uh, there's got to be videos on YouTube. Actually, I have some videos showing the Von Schroeder. I think I have a playlist showing the Von Schroeder. I do have a machine which was actually virtually identical to the one my dad had back in the 70s. I think the one I have is a 78 model, I think. But anyway, it works perfect. And if you want to go and see it in action, interesting machines. That's where my dad started carpet cleaning back in 1974. Used a Ford Courier pickup truck with a canopy on the back, and that's how we'd go out and clean carpets. I'd work with him on weekends normally at that time, and then in the summer I was helping him out quite a bit. Um, and Used the Von Schroeder uh, carpet machine as well as the upholstery cleaning system, and it was a fine system. And at the time, it was actually, considering the way that it worked, it was really very advanced. And this was just as truck mounts were starting to come into the forefront, I guess. So that's where I began in high school. And then as I got out of high school, I actually moved away briefly for about a year or year and a half, I think. But I came back to Victoria again. I was working with my dad using the Von Schroeder dry foam system, and and that would have been into 81 or so. And then I actually stopped working for my dad because he actually didn't pay very well. And by the way, one of the things that was going on, I forgot to mention, is there's a lot of times that when I was working with my dad, when this is a very important foundational kind of thing that was going on, because the way my dad generated work is he delivered flyers, and so we would spend many Saturdays in the summer when there wasn't as much work at times, or even often in the evenings, we'd get into my dad's, okay, we're gonna go deliver flyers, and we'd hop into the little truck, go off somewhere in Victoria, and we'd go and deliver flyers for an hour or two. And I mean, I've delivered thousands and thousands and thousands of flyers over the years with my dad, and later on when I started my own business, that's what I also did back then. So that's the beginning of when I was carpet cleaning, and then I got out of it for I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess. In '82, I got married, and I was working at a. I quit with my dad. I was working in a manufacturing plant making these orthotic foot appliances, and then I went from there to a year or two later. I went and I worked at a parts place, appliance parts, and I was there for another year or two, and then I somewhere around that time I decided that I needed to add to my income. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do for work? I realized I wanted to do a business, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I could be carpet cleaning. And at that time, my dad's business had kind of fizzled out. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I should do carpet cleaning. I kind of think I know what I'm doing. And I knew that my dad had obviously, he'd been doing it for a few years. And he had at that point, the business had kind of fizzled out in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. Things got really bad economically speaking. So, and that was part of the reason that things weren't going well for my dad business wise. And he was working as a maintenance guy at a camp, and they lived there. Anyway, I decided, okay, I'll go and talk to my dad about this, and maybe he'll let me use his Von Schroeder machine. So I go to talk to my dad, and I said, okay, I want to do carpet cleaning, so can I take your Von Schroeder machine and clean carpets? And he said, well, actually, no, because there they are over there. They're all in bits and pieces. They're all broken and worn out and everything. And he stopped using them because they were done for, I guess. So he basically business was basically dead, I guess. But he did have a couple of host CRB machines, and he said that's the machine you want to go and use. He says yeah, you can go and use them, except that the catch was that I had to take one of my younger brothers along as a partner, which I hadn't thought that I would do that initially, but okay, I can use your machines. He said I could use his machines, but I had to have one of my brothers as a partner, which actually turned out to not be a good idea. Anyway, so we started carpet cleaning with the host system, which is a dry powder system. Again, if you go online, you'll find, I'm sure there's lots of videos out there about the host system, which is a CRB machine. It uses a powder, which is actually ground up corn husky, sprinkle it on the carpet and work it in with the machine and vacuum it up. Now, both these systems have been around for a long, long time, and they have their good points and they have their bad points. But I did have the experience in using them, and I learned what their good and bad points were. There's more bad points than good points. But anyway, so we started doing that, and that was initially we were going to be calling ourselves, like I'd come up with a name. I think I took on my dad's name, which was Fabricare, but then when my brother came on board, we kind of talked about, hey, wait a minute, this is a dry system, let's market it as a dry methodology. And he came up with an idea for a name, which was Dryway. And the business, by the way, still is operating with my other brother running it now in Victoria, but Dryway. And then I designed a logo, which was a circle slash initially I had 2 or 3 drops of water in it, and then we took it to a graphic artist who happened to be our cousin, and he redesigned it with a single drop and Dryway around it or whatever. And that was 1986 when we started doing that, which I remember that well because that was when we had the expo in Vancouver in 1986. Right around that time, by the way, or very shortly after we had started the business, within a few months, maybe 6 months or not even quite a year, I actually had to step out of the business because of there was too many time constraints on me working. Initially, I was working at the appliance parts place, but I had then quit that because things were going out of control in the business because my brother was making decisions that I wasn't there. And I realized, okay, I gotta either, what they call fish or cut bait. Anyway, so I quit my job. I went full-time into the business. And initially, by the way, I should point out that what I was doing while I was working as a parts person, I rode a motorbike at the time, and I would get up early in the morning and take off and go to an area in Victoria, deliver flyers for about an hour or so. Then I go to work and do my job all day long, then go home. And I tried to work on the weekends and that became an issue, a strain on my marriage. There were other issues that were more pertinent, I guess, as well, but that just added to the strain. And then within a year, I guess I probably had to make a decision, and I had to step out of the business to focus on just dealing with as far as the running of the business. And I stepped out of the partnership, but I became employee because things were actually really accelerating quickly in the business. The flyers we were putting out, and next thing you know, we were putting out ads in the paper. And there's a videos, I think I have a playlist about it where I show some of the ads that we were doing way back then. We were doing like full page ads pretty quickly in this paper, and we were doing really quite well initially. But anyway, so that was where I was. I started with the Von Charter system, and then we went to the dry powder system, and then I was going through some very difficult things in my personal life, and I ended up having to step out of everything, and then I moved to the Okanagan, and that would have been 19. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one thing. Okay, I was working for my brother, and my dad, by the way, took over the other half of the partnership, as it were. So I stepped out, my dad took over, and then I was working basically as an employee for a little while. And then I got hired on, or I met this guy who was, he saw me, I don't know how he knew who I was, but he worked for the Bay in-home cleaning, and they did the contract work for the Bay store, which is a big Canadian chain right across Canada, and they were doing carpet cleaning, and they would put ads in the paper, 3 rooms, $45 or whatever it was, and they were really quite busy, and they were mostly using Ninja portables, and they also hired guys on with truck mounts and paid them a little bit differently. And anyway, I met this guy, and he said, hey, you can come and work for me, and you'll make lots of money because we pay you a percent, and you'll get, and pretty quickly I did, and next thing I knew, I was making really good money, running with a portable, and that was my first real experience using a portable. It was a Ninja 100 PSI. I ended up doing, I actually was kind of, I got mostly furnished or pushed in my direction, but I did carpeting as well, of course, and that was quite the experience, and I did that for maybe about a year, and then that business fizzled out is what happened, because in the late 80s, everything was really getting very difficult, economically speaking. And then in about 89 or 89 or 90 or so, my marriage came to an end. I had nothing. I mean, I remember walking down the streets of Victoria and put my hand in my pocket, and I had like 15 cents, and it's like, that's all I have. Money-wise, and it was a weird feeling to find I didn't have any utility bills to pay because there was nothing in my name. I was actually homeless, although I was never living on the street, but I literally had nothing. But I stayed with my parents for a little while, and then I was looking for work, and I was originally going to be hired to run a carpet cleaning business in Nanaimo, which is a couple hours north of Victoria. But then I also, for some reason, I had this compelling desire to check out the Okanagan for work, and I found a carpet cleaning business there was looking for someone to run a truck mount, and I called the guy and talked to him, and next thing you know, I was offered the job in the Okanagan at the same time being offered the job in the Nanaimo. I kind of weighed the pros and cons of both, and I thought, no, I really think for some reason I just got to go to the Okanagan. So again, I had nothing. So and the guy says, yeah, you come to Penticton. So I go to my dad and I said, look, I got this job. I got to go like right away. I have nothing. What do you want? What should I do? And he says, okay, you go do the job. And he had like $75 in his wallet. He says, that's all I got right now. I had me $75, and I packed a suitcase, and he drove me down to the bus first thing in the morning, got on the bus in Victoria, and away I went. And it was a long drive because the bus stopped everywhere along the way. I didn't get to the Okanagan until like midnight, and I walked into the bus station off the bus in Penticton, and there's the guy sitting there on the bench, and he has a big cowboy hat, and he looks like he just came off like a Clint Eastwood movie. He was a real character. And that was Art, and I really appreciate what Art did for me. And I was able to stay at his house for a while. And anyway, he takes me to his house and says, okay, I got lots of work lined up with the truck mounts ready to go. He took me to the truck mount the next day, sent me off down to Osoyoos, which is about an hour and a half or so south of Penticton. It's actually right on the U.S. border. And the first job I did running the truck mount, I was doing a big motel. And I forgot, back when I was in Victoria, when I was working for the company that did the Bay in-home cleaning, right after that sort of fizzled out, of one of the guys that worked for the Bay in home cleaning, he had a truck mount, and we went into a partnership for a while there. So I worked with him for about 6 months or so. I stayed at his house, and we were trying to get a business going back then. So that was really my first real foray into using a truck mount, was back in Victoria. So here I am back a few years, 3 years later or so, in the Okanagan running a truck mount. It was a Hydromaster. It was a nice truck mount. And yeah, we did a fair amount of work, a lot of motels, etc., because there's a lot of that in the Okanagan, at least particularly in Penticton at that time, which is where I was. So and back in Penticton, and I remember that let me think now, April 13 was the first. I remember driving through the orchards in Oliver on my way down to Osoyoos, and all the orchards were all in bloom with all the apple blossoms and cherry blossoms and everything. And I just think, wow, this is beautiful here. So that was neat. And the Okanagan was very good to me. I really enjoyed living here. That was my first living out of Victoria time. Okay, that's not true. I did live in the north end of Vancouver Island for about a year in 1979, I guess. But anyway, back to the Okanagan. I'm running a truck mount, and I had the year before, when I was in Victoria, we living with my parents. I had been trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I had gone and applied for a position in a class to become a care aide, because I was thinking, I want to get out of carpet cleaning. This isn't working out for me. And I applied for the course and everything, but it was going to be like a year or more wait list. It's like, okay, well, that's not any use to me, so I kind of forgot about it. And then I ended up in the Okanagan, and a year and a half later, things were not doing well with the business in the Okanagan there, partly because just the whole way the business was operating, and it's a small town, Penticton is. There's just not enough there to, at least there wasn't at that point. And it was, I went through one winter and barely survived, because I was getting paid a percent, and the pricing was really low. I tried to get the pricing to go up, but that just wasn't working. And I was truck mount steam cleaning, and I understood how to market better for low moisture, and this obviously wasn't. And my attempts to sort of upscale the business wasn't really working, partly because of the name of the business, which was Budget Carpet Cleaning, which is not a good name to brand as a higher end business, as it were. So anyway, I ended up going back to Victoria again, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I just knew that I couldn't survive another winter, because I was like, sometimes I was making well under $1,000 a month, and yeah, I wasn't doing well, and the divorce thing was all finally happened, and everything, and things weren't good. But so I go back to Victoria, and I thought, okay, well, I got to go and maybe try and reapply for this care aid course. That was what I thought I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it at all. But I go to the college, and I said, okay, I'm giving my name and everything. I want to put my name on the list. And they said, oh, well, your name is already here. I said, oh, what? And I said, oh, I forgot. I already registered for that a year and a half ago or whatever. And they said, oh, and yeah, by the way, there's a course coming up in like 2 months or whatever, and you're on the list. And by the way, that'll be $780 or whatever it was, and which I didn't have. But I didn't have to have it at that moment. I just had to have it within a few days of when the course started. So I thought, oh my goodness, okay, how am I going to do this? So I was like shocked almost, and I really felt it was a sort of God in control scenario. And anyway, so I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And back when I was in Victoria before, I had done some work for, there's a very large janitorial business in Victoria. I think it's called Supreme Building Maintenance, yes. So I thought, okay, I'll go back to Supreme Building Maintenance, and I'll see if I can, because I did some work for them. I'd forgotten I mentioned that when I was in my previous life there. Not a lot of work, but I did some work for them. But So I go back to Supreme Building Maintenance. I said, okay, I'm a carpet cleaner. Do you need a carpet cleaner? And they said, well, actually, no, we don't, because we have subcontracted everything out to uh, Bert, I think his name was, Bert Meadows, yeah, and Super Clean, and he does all our he does all our carpet cleaning for us. So I go over, and I'd met him before, in a few years before, and on a job somewhere. So anyway, I go over to see. I called him up and I said, "Oh," he says, "Yeah, come on over. Well, let's have a talk." So I go over there and to talk to him, and he says, I walk in the door and he's sitting there with his partner, and I said, and then he knew who I was, and then I knew who he was, and we had a bit of a chat, and he says, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, I'm in Victoria. I'm looking for carpet cleaning work and everything." And he says, "Well, actually," he says, "we're sitting here talking, trying to figure out who we're going to get to do all our carpet cleaning for us, because we don't want to do it because we're so busy doing the janitorial end of things. We just need to find someone we can just give our equipment to. You go and clean carpets." He says, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "What?" Again, there's God in control. And I said, "Yes." And then he says, "Well, how much do you want me to pay you?" And I hadn't even thought of that. So I said, "Okay, I don't know, 40%." He says, "Done." And so I had a job. He says, "Okay, here's the way it works. There's the van, here's the equipment. You come here on Friday or whatever." And because I could work evenings and weekends and whatever. And I told him I was going to be doing the course, of course, which was going to be starting up within a few weeks. And then I wouldn't be available all during the week, but I could work on the weekends. But in the meantime, he says, "Okay, here's the work," and away I go. And so right away, I had a whole bunch of work. He actually did all the private schools in Victoria, plus lots of office buildings and stuff like that. And he had a couple of nice portables, and away I went and running with the portables. And the course was about to start within a few weeks. My first paycheck, I go to him, and he hands me the check. The check and was like just over. Um, just over the amount that I needed for the course. And I remember thinking about it because I'd done a lot of praying about this. And I thought, okay, well, that's wonderful. I mean, I've got all I need for the course. Why do I have extra? And then I realized, oh, I need some gas money. Now, I should go back to when I was in Penticton before, by the way. I forgot to mention one thing. Well, two things, actually. One is that just before I left the Okanagan, I needed to get a vehicle. I had been using the truck mount as my vehicle for the most part, but at that got to the point where the guy I worked for said, "Okay, you got to stop using the truck for your personal stuff. You got to go get your own vehicle." So I went and I found a car, a nice little, amazingly nice little car for $200. They were asking 500. It had a couple of issues with it, nothing serious, and I paid $200 for a 1984 Renault hatchback, and it was a good car. So this is the car I had, by the way, just to bear in mind. And also, before I had moved to the Okanagan, and I don't know why I did it, but I went into a janitorial supply store one day, and there was a beautiful little Clark FM13 rotary machine with a tank and everything on it, and it was $200. And I just thought, oh, I like that little machine. I don't know why, but I bought it, and so I was carrying this thing around with me, I guess, for a few years, and I just sort of put it aside, and I thought, I don't know, I just had this idea that maybe I could use this thing one day. So anyway, back to Victoria. I'm working for Super Clean, doing their janitorial stuff, and they did a lot of the jobs where I'd go into the office building. They're like 20 stories of offices, like the bank buildings and that kind of thing. And it was go in there and take out all the spots and staining that you can find, and away I went, and I began to realize that, man, this isn't very efficient, because I would fill up it was like a 10 or 20 gallon, I can't remember, maybe 15-gallon portable, and I'd be cleaning with it. Next thing you know, I got to dump it, and of course the janitorial closet is across the other side of the building, down 3 floors, and whatever. And I thought, I'm spending so much time back and forth, back and forth. This is just not a good idea. I mean, it was workable. I mean, and that was the way they did it. And it's like, but then I thought, I do have that little Clark floor machine. What if I put a pad underneath it, a bonnet, and clean like Chem-Dry? And Chem-Dry, we're talking like 40 years ago, practically. And of course, that would be, Chem-Dry was the most widely known bonnet cleaning machine, or method or company out there. And I thought, well, they're doing it. Well, why can't I? So I went and I picked up a bonnet or two. I think they were the loopy ones. Um, Probably a rayon blend or something. I'm not sure. It's been a long time. And then the product that I was cleaning with, it was actually the cleaning product that he had for his portable, and I have no idea whether it was probably a terrible product to use, but it worked. And I didn't know anything about anything. And of course, there was no encapsulating products out there, and very little, I don't know, nobody was out there doing what I was about to do that I was aware of anyway. So I thought, okay, I'll just take this machine, I'll put the cleaner in here, and away I went with put the bonnet on it, and I started cleaning with the rotary machine with the bonnets. And for the most part, it actually worked pretty well. I remember, oh boy, I just remembered. I remember one of the things that I did, and this is bad idea, but used to, the idea was that if you got a real greasy spot, you just get some WD-40. I'm sitting in my garage. I can see the can sitting right over here. Yeah, put some WD-40 on it, and it'll take out the grease spot or whatever. And that's a very bad idea. Don't do that. It'll mess up the backing of the carpet. But I didn't know any better. So anyway, I did that, and I realized that I'm actually able to produce an awful lot more square feet with this little machine, and it's working pretty well for the most part. And so that was my real introduction to using the rotary and bonnet cleaning. But anyway, I was doing that for while I was doing the course, and then I finished the course, and I was hired immediately, and I was now working as a carrier. And my intention was, I'm never going to be carpet cleaning again. I'm just going to be a carrier. I was getting paid good money as an on-call. It was like $17 an hour, plus dental and medical and everything. So it was pretty good. And I was often double shifting, so I was making some pretty good money. But I knew right from the get-go that I was going to move back to the Okanagan. I just knew that was where I needed to be. My heart was in the Okanagan, and I worked so I was back in Victoria for about a year and a half, and then I found a job as a carrier in Penticton. I took the job. I moved back up to the Okanagan, and I started to work as a carrier on call. But I thought, I need to, and which meant that I wasn't actually full time, but I was making pretty good money, and I was actually living in a room, in a house, in a room with a bunch of others, 3 or 4 other guys in there, and then the owners were living upstairs, and so just basically renting a room. So my costs of living were pretty low. But as I was working as a care aide, I thought, I really need to make a little more money. And I thought, if I could make an extra $2,000 a month, this is what I'd like to do. So I thought, well, I can do carpet cleaning. I know how to do that. So I did some thinking about it, and I thought, okay, what method will I use? Washwater? No. Host? Nope. Steam cleaning? Nope. Been there, done that. So I'd gone through the whole gamut of methodologies, but I thought, what about that little machine I've got? I still had it. And I thought, I really thought that the potential was with the little rotary machine. I thought, I think it'll work. So, and also, back when I was in Victoria, I used to go to, there was the Commonwealth pool, which was a Olympic rated pool right near where I was living, and I used to go swimming there a lot. And one of the things I discovered was that the pool was being purified with ozone rather than chlorine. And I ended up calling and talking. My dad was a friend with an old industry guy by the name of Ed York. And my dad says, Ed York knows all about ozone. Give him a call. So I called up Ed York, and we had a great conversation. He explained to me how ozone put into water, it can be bonded with the water molecules when it's cold. And you can basically, we call that aqueous ozone. And it will increase the cleaning power and give it a disinfecting ability, etc., etc. So when I started to think about what I wanted to do for methodology, I thought, you know what? I bet if I took my rotor machine, I put an ozone generator on it, and I injected the ozone into the cleaning water, and I cleaned with it, that'll improve the way it cleans. Also gives me a marketing position, a USP, unique sales pitch, unique sales position. So I got the ozone generator, and I basically bungee corded it to the bed because it was like a little suitcasey thing. It was a really primitive one, but it worked. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to call myself? And I had I knew that there's a couple of things I wanted to make sure that I had was I wanted the dry time to be an hour or less, ideally, in most cases. Also, I wanted the word dry in the name, and so I was trying to decide I was going to call it either Dura Dry or Oxy-Dry. And I hummed and hawed back and forth, and in the end, I decided I'll call it Oxy-Dry because oxy is so short for oxygen, and ozone is a form of oxygen, so that's why the name is Oxy-Dry. I started right away with flyers and distributing them. I would, I made up some flyers and I started walking. And pretty quickly I started getting work. One of the things that also I did is at the beginning, I was like, okay, what am I going to charge? And I decided, okay, I'm going to make it so that when somebody gets a flyer, they're not going to have any reason not to call me. It suddenly wouldn't be price. I started at $15 a room. My minimum was 2 rooms. Now that's really cheap, obviously, but I could do it because my overhead was next to nothing. And I remember it wasn't very long, like within a week or two, I remember the very first day that I made $200 before 11 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, yeah, this will work. This will work, I started delivering flyers, and pretty quickly, it actually grew pretty quickly. And this is in a town of 30,000 people. And there's a lot of smaller houses in that town at that time anyway. So I wasn't really doing a lot of big houses. A lot of World War II houses, and in a lot of areas in Penticton at the time. But anyway, so it really took off, and things grew pretty quickly. I did move away from the little machine fairly quickly, within a year or so. And I also was working out of the back of my 1984 Renault hatchback, and it was fine for a month or two, I guess. But pretty quickly, within a couple of months, I was pretty much full time, and I had to quit. I didn't quit the job at the care facility right away. I think it was like 6 months later before I actually did quit it. But I was pretty darn busy pretty quickly. I remember doing even big commercial jobs with this little 13-inch machine, like condo hallways and everything. I mean, you can do it. But quickly, I think it was within a year or so, I ended up getting a bigger machine. And by the way, that was back then. Within 2 years was when I actually bought my very first Centaur Rabbit, and that was a seriously good machine. I knew that at the time, but I found that, and it never occurred to me to run it without the splash guard on. How dumb was that? Mind you, they never said anything. That was way back. That was a long time ago. And I do remember thinking a number of times especially when it's going around a bed, is like with the splash guard on, it's like 20 inches across, and it's like I can't fit here and I can't fit there. So anyway, now that I understand better, now that I have the Centaurs again, and you just keep the splash guard off, and you got a machine with a 15-inch base, so that's no problem. But anyway, and over the years I've used various other rotaries, etc. And then in the late when was it, 2008 or so? Let me think. When did I buy my first OP machine? Anyway, the OP machines came out, and of course the talk was they're going to be the answer, and they're better than a rotary, and yada yada, the whole story. And I believe that, and I remember I bought an Orbitec or two, and then not long after that I also bought an Orbot, and I tried them out in various scenarios, and pretty quickly I realized that these are not the right thing for residential. I've dealt with that many times in videos. I've talked about that. And then um, I've also, but I did use them almost always for the residential, pardon me, the commercial jobs with the condo hallways and everything, and I think that's where they really do very well. And that's if I was going to use any of my orbital machines, that's where I would use them. But then recently, if you're watching my videos, you know that I picked up a couple of Centaur machines, and quite frankly, in my experience, in um, my opinion, I think the rotary is a overall better choice in both residential and commercial. But either way will work, and either way is of course SETT, which was soil extraction transfer technology. And that the idea for the SETT methodology actually came about over 10 years ago. And basically it was, the idea was, I realized that there's a negative connotation associated with bonnet cleaning, and deservedly so, because there's been a lot of bad bonnet cleaning that has gone on over the years, primarily janitorial companies that hand the a rotary to an inexperienced and ill-trained employee, and you put some detergent in a bucket and squeeze out the excess, throw this big floppy bonnet down on the carpet and put the rotary on and just run it over the carpet. And you know that's really one of the big reasons why there's been such a negative um, reputation associated with bonnet cleaning, is just poor practices and poor training and etc. And of course, in the past, there was poor products that were associated with it. Things have changed. We've got better products. We've got better training. We've got better pads. It's time to rebrand it and rethink it. And that was where the idea for the SETT came from. And I started applying it in my own business, started talking about it to people more directly. I put it in my marketing and my advertising. And then just a couple of years ago, I started to talk more about it in my videos. And I started to suggest it to other people to use it. I contacted one of the manufacturers of suppliers of uh, cleaning products, and who also actually makes a carpet cleaning machine. And I said, don't call it bonnet, call it SETT. And I suggested that to him. And I don't. Initially, he did put something on his website, I guess, about that time. But I he never took it from there anyway. And in the last year or so, there's a number of us who've been talking a lot more about this, and we realize that this can really be a good thing. And so now we have a vision, we have an idea of where this can go, and we do want to rebrand bonnet cleaning, and take bonnet cleaning and put it aside, and let's be SETT. It's more descriptive, soil extraction transfer technology. It's more easier term to explain something to somebody about how do you clean the carpet. We're going to take the soil, we're going to transfer it out. I mean, what exactly is a bonnet anyway? I've asked so many people, like, whoever came up with the idea of calling that pad they put on the carpet a bonnet? I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, so that's the basically the background of where I've been carpet cleaning. And I should mention, I've also got I purchased in the last couple of years or so, I purchased a roto wash as well as a multi wash, and I've used them on carpets as well, and they work fine. They have their place. And there's situations where I would probably use the roto wash again. I've got some videos showing that. But for the most part, from this point forward, I think that probably every video I do, both commercial and residential, I'll be using the one of the Centaur rabbit machines, because I think they're the best overall machine for the SETT methodology. That's my opinion, my experience. Any machine will work, any rotary will work, any OP machine will work, whatever you choose to use, that's your business. But I think that this is the better choice, in my opinion. And having Centaur, now that I've had directly contacted them in the last few days, and we've had a couple of conversations, and we realize we both see this as being a really good thing. And so they're on board, and now they're actually I invited them to come and join the SETT, Soil Extraction Transfer Technology Facebook page, and they've graciously joined us. And so we're all going to be helping each other out and encouraging one another and learning from one another. And so the future is looking good. So I hope this is a helpful thing, and you guys can, I've been at it a long time. I'm now 65. I don't know how much longer I'll be going, but thankfully, so far, I'm okay. Beginning to feel some things that are age related, but anyway, thank you for watching, and have a good day.